Hello, beautiful people out there. Very happy today that we have a guest that I know, but I do not know. Actually, quite funny how life is sometimes. So, welcome, Franceska, from the Hotel Florist, from the States right now, from Houston, Texas.
I know the guest and I know her.
Yeah, I know you know.
That's true.
But I don't. So welcome to a piece of the puzzle here with Yes Exclusive Flowers. So happy that I can see you now at least. Usually I just follow you, but it's nice to have a real conversation.
Likewise.
I think, like, personally, I know a little bit of your story and obviously also through following you. But maybe for the people out there who do not know what Franceska is doing, how she actually got to become a hotel florist, and maybe a little bit later on, we're also talking about what are you doing right now, like while maybe like hotel florists have a little bit a difficult situation. But how did you get into like your florist job, and where did it like lead you, like your story?
Where did it start? Actually, like how did it start?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on today. It's such an honor to just sit here and have a chat with you. So my journey in floral design started actually 10 years ago when I worked for a design studio in Dallas, Texas. I helped with the business side of things while I had a full-time job, ironically, in the hotel industry, because that is my background. I have a Bachelor of Science in Hotel and Restaurant Management. And I just fell in love with flowers, and I became very interested at the idea that the design studio I worked for focused on all corporate accounts. They didn't do weddings, they didn't do daily deliveries, and I found that really fascinating. And in 2011, I moved to Dubai, still with my hotel company that I was working for at the time. And in 2012, I had the opportunity to pursue passion projects. I became a freelancer. I started my first business, which was in cigars. And flash forward a couple of years, I realized that I was successful at what I was doing, but I really wasn't in love with what I was doing. And so I decided to go back to the idea of flowers. And ever since I was little, I always was arranging flowers, whether they were picked in the garden or even in college, I would have flowers in my apartment. Flowers always were part of my life. And so I literally Googled one day how to be a florist or how to be a floral designer. Thank God for Google. And I found a course in LA, and it was a master's in floral design. And so I thought, well, that's what I need to do. And I flew to LA in 2015, and I got my master's in floral design, and then came back to Dubai and started my floral design company called Franceska Flower Design. And we focus specifically on expat weddings of 250 people or less. I really enjoyed the vendors that I worked with. I really liked getting to know the couples. And my business took off. And in 2016, my husband looked at me after being in the Middle East for 10 years and said, I want a new adventure. And so we found ourselves in Houston, and I thought, well, this is great. I'll open a second location. So I opened Franceska Flower Design Houston. And the following year, I was offered a residency at a hotel in Dallas to open a Franceska Dallas location. So by the time 2017, 18 rolled around, I had 3 locations under Franceska Flower Design. Became very stressed, was no longer in love with my business, and just decided I needed to reevaluate. And so and this is a very long answer to your question, but I'll try to make it as efficient as possible. So in 2018, I decided Houston would be the headquarters of Franceska Flower Design. But I was realizing that all the clients I really enjoyed working with were my hotel clients and the big brands that I would work with. So I decided that I would niche down even further and just focus on those types of clients. So in last year, I launched the Hotel Florist, and it's a turnkey floral solution for luxury hotels and brands exclusively. So we don't really do corporate anymore. We don't do weddings. We don't do day of deliveries. We really just focus on working with our hotel clients.
Okay,
that's amazing. Maybe tell us a little bit, like, when you say hotel florist, I think a lot of people, even in the floristry, they have not really a clear idea what that can include, what that means.
Absolutely. So to be a hotel florist, you're basically seen as the in-house florist for that particular property. Now, for example, with some of my brands like Tiffany & Co., I'm their in-house florist for the state of Texas. So I take care of every single Tiffany & Co. store in the state of Texas. There's 7, almost 8 of them now. But the Hotel Florist, I take care of individual properties. And so the property I've been with the longest is the JW Marriott downtown Houston. I've been with them over 3 years now. My studio is actually based inside the hotel. And so we take care of everything for the hotel, whether it's specific arrangements for their guests or just their weekly installs. And we're contracted on an annual basis. Some hotels work differently. Some have longer agreements, but typically it's on an annual basis with a fixed monthly budget.
Okay. And I mean, maybe you just want to explain a little bit, possibly your Middle Eastern influence. When you have worked in hotels, you have seen, I am sure, amazing hotel lobby installations. And maybe also what is the difference, like a cultural difference maybe as well, like when you see like lobbies around the world, because I know you like to travel as well, and maybe also did that have like somehow an influence on what you're doing now in the US, or like just tell us a little bit more about lobbies and like how they can make a statement, or what do you think is important as a hotel florist for you to achieve when you're doing your job?
Absolutely. So the lobby flowers make such a difference on a guest arrival experience. And that is a huge important factor for a hotel brand, is how they're perceived the moment that the guest arrives. And so it has to have a bit of a wow factor. At the same time, it has to complement the city you're in. It has to tell a bit of a story. And so a lot of times you'll notice if you go into a hotel and it's, say, around the holidays, and they're still putting tropical plants in the lobby, but it's not Hawaii or it's not Thailand. It just feels off. You know, there's no synergy there. You don't really feel tied in with the local community or keeping it authentically local, as we like to say. But it is really incredible how flowers do transform space in these hotel lobbies. So, for example, in the Middle East, they're typically on a very, very grand scale. They're typically very colorful. You feel very decadent when you arrive. There's this touch of luxury, which is what the Middle East is all about. And then, for example, let's say if you go to Asia, more specifically Tokyo, their flower culture is so respected. I mean, you have these beautiful installs that are so intricate, and every single detail has been looked after. The floral designer is typically in the hotel in a shop that you can go in and talk to and actually really get to know the artist. And here in the States, it depends on what the brand standards are. I find, for example, let's take Four Seasons. Four Seasons is known for their flowers. I mean, look at the Georges Cinq in Paris. They have millions of dollars every year to spend on their flower budget. But do you take the Four Seasons Houston, it's a different owner, and he doesn't want to spend money on flowers. So they have like coffee table books. Every country is different in how important flowers are to them, but they really do transform space, and they really do impact the guest arrival for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Actually, we are also traveling quite a lot. Yeah. And when you enter a hotel, this is the first impression, and you feel either welcome with the flowers or maybe not. And I must say, even in Asia, totally agree. They have, even the scent is actually quite important there, like by arrival for the guest. And I think it's very important. But coming to travel, I think you just recently did something very, very, very unique, and that was also when we actually had a glass of wine in Cape Town. So tell us a little bit about this one, I think, and then maybe we come to how that actually influenced you.
Absolutely. So I decided last year that I wanted to restructure my business in a way that it didn't require me to be there on a day-to-day basis. And the reason why I wanted to do this was because I really wanted to travel more. I mean, as anybody knows as business owners, especially if you have a brick and mortar, or if you have a weekly contract, it's only natural that you tend to stay tied down to home to manage your teams, or, be there for your clients. And I just felt like I wanted to start traveling again and figure out how that would work. And so I came up with a plan to freelance overseas. And my goal was to live in a different country every month, freelance while I was there, so it could obviously pay for my living expenses. And then my business was passively earning me income on the side. And it was a great idea in theory, and I still really enjoyed it. But every country is so different. Some countries are super open. Their mentality is like, yes, come, I need help. Other countries are very standoffish. Like, I worked very hard for this. I'm not looking to share this. And so it was interesting, the feedback I received, but I did manage to do some freelancing in Australia before coming home due to COVID-19. And it was just incredible to learn, to be part of a team, an international team that had a completely different culture, used completely different words, called flowers completely different things, and to see what their almost basics or their statement pieces that they always would use and why they would use those. And so coming back, another reason why I wanted to do this was I wanted to make sure that what we were designing was truly reflective of being multicultural or multi-dimensional. I want someone who sees our designs to be inspired by them and like, oh, I've never seen something like that before. But if you keep doing the same thing all the time, you're so close to your greatness that a lot of times you don't branch out to try new things. And so it was a great experience. It was cut short, sadly, but it was a great experience.
And how many countries actually you have visited and worked? I think you've been for 4 or 5 months already before you had to return because of COVID.
So my goal was 6 months and I made it 7 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah, but I mean, generally, I think a lot of dreams and visions of people have somehow been, I don't want to say stopped, but been paused by the pandemic. And I think generally it has obviously a huge impact. And now maybe we come also to the situation that you are facing now, being a hotel florist, and maybe what maybe your thoughts were around that, or how maybe you also could break through just being a hotel florist, because I think, I mean, flowers for hospitality right now is not the main focus, if I maybe can say that, just because obviously there are fewer guests around, and they just need to also like look at their budgets quite tightly. Traveling for most countries, even like domestic travel is not really a thing right now. So how did like the pandemic or COVID-19 has affected your current business as a hotel florist? And maybe what were your thoughts, or how do you try to basically do something with the time that you have on your hands right now?
So the journey definitely hasn't been easy. Like I mentioned before, when I had this idea of going and freelancing and having a business that passively earned my income on the side, to leave in February and know that was a game plan, and to come back into March and realize that wasn't even an option anymore. It was definitely something very traumatic. I would say traumatic. I am the main breadwinner in my family. I have been. I take a lot of responsibility with what I do. I obviously feel for my team. And so it started slowly. The trickle, I was still in Australia, and, cancellations started coming in, and that was totally to be expected. And then probably when I had a huge event with Chanel, probably when they put that on hold, I started to realize that, okay, like, we're really going to have to just rely on our hotel clients. And then I remember sitting in Tokyo, trying to come back to Houston, and I got the email from basically all my hotel clients, and they were saying they were pushing for some door clauses. And I remember talking to legal about this, and their answer was simply like, they can't afford it. Like it's not because they don't want to, or they're bad, or they're trying to get out of their contracts. It's just we're in a time where people can't afford things like this. And so I decided to have an attitude of just gratefulness and just appreciation for the clients that I had, and to really feel for what they're going through. You know, one of my clients went from 238 employees to 38 in one day. And
Wow.
it only is to be expected that they try to cut everywhere they can, because now it's all about survival. And I think that's been the scariest thing about this pandemic is yes, there's a lot of health issues, but it's also just affected so many people on a global economic level. So coming home and knowing and walking through the same door that I felt so reassured that I had taken all this time to set up this great income generator for me, and coming in and realizing that there was actually no business to come back to was very surreal. And I had already started offering education materials for florists that were looking to gain hotel partnerships. And so I decided, okay, well, let's focus on that. Let's go ahead and make sure that, you know, we're using this time to educate ourselves and how we can come back even stronger. And especially because now all these hotels are out of their contract. So it's a perfect time to snatch one up as soon as they're looking again. But as we started getting into April, I realized that I firmly believe the hotels are going to come back, and my business is not gone away. It's just on pause. It's kind of on the back burner, but it's not going to come back anytime soon, especially for the kind of spend. I mean, these hotels are spending six figures. They're committing six figures every year, and they're not going to do this coming out of a crisis like this, not even knowing how many heads they're going to get in their beds in the next like 6 months. And so I thought, I'm doing myself a disservice, and I'm doing others a disservice by still continuing to promote an industry that I actually don't even benefit or believe in myself right now. And so I took about a week to reflect on, well, what would I do next? And obviously there's a lot of imposter syndrome, and there's a lot of like, I don't want to confuse anyone about what I'm doing. But for a long time, I've thought about how amazing it would be if I could create some sort of mentorship membership to help other people, just like I have, pursue their passion and create a profitable business. And so I've started building that. It launches later this month. I've started working on my podcast and really just inspiring and motivating people to go after what it is that they want. There's no perfect time. However, this time is unprecedented. We've never had something like this before. The likelihood of having this much time on our hands again is unlikely. And so why not really use this time? What do you have to lose? You know, like we've already lost so much.
Yeah. And I think if you don't try now, I mean, there will be, as you said, there will be no more time on our hands. I mean, to be quite honest, what we are doing right now, we would also have never done, especially if everything would be like as it was like 2 months ago, you know, because just the time that we maybe also now take, which we think is important for those things to raise, or for a platform to inspire people, like was not even necessary, because maybe nobody would even have the time to look at this right now, because everyone would just do their own thing and run around, get their things done, do their, like, live their lives. So I think, like, in a way, this is what we also say all the time, like the pandemic, as difficult, as tragic, and as really heartbreaking it is for a lot of us, on the private level as well as on a business level, it also has a flip side. It also like gives us opportunities in the way that we never thought we had on our hands. And this is what I think, I hope also what we with this platform can prove, that, like, you know, there is not everything bad in a bad situation. You have to obviously like pull yourself up and like really like, you know, like make it work for yourself, for your brand, to show up there and to really communicate and to maybe try to live a dream which was long buried because you just didn't have the time. It was too busy. And to come out now and just to try, because as you said, you don't have anything to lose right now.
No, and even yesterday we had a chat, and I said to this lady, and I hope Leonie, you are here to listen. I said, tomorrow you must actually listen to Franceska, because this is a story like no other. You know, I think there is a lot of people in our flower or in our event community where we speak to, and not everyone is, let's say, is so outgoing person, you know, like to say, okay, we make the best out of the situation. We are all different, you know. We have more sensitive people, we have more outgoing people, we have more introverted people. Like, we are all different and we all behave different. And for the one is maybe the dealing with the situation easier than for the other one. So, but nonetheless, what we have experienced the last couple of weeks, talking to so many people, like in private, not just on the chats, but almost in private, that was phenomenal. And I was even talking to Alfie, like, when we talk to each other, there is always whatever outcome, but there is an idea that somebody can grab, or an inspiration that someone can actually take up, or to listen to somebody. You know, it's just like that is what we need, and also what we actually need to carry on in the future. I think it is something what we for us will take out of this, that we speak more to people in our industry. Because in the past there was, like, sometimes you thought, oh my God, you can't call them because they are so busy.
They don't have time.
They don't have time, you know. This is not an excuse right now. I call each and everybody because I know they cannot tell me. You know, and they can actually explain to me they don't like me, or they don't like to talk to me, or whatever, but they cannot say they have no time. And I think that's something really, really wonderful, that we also jump over the borders and can talk to people like you. And that inspires maybe a couple of people somewhere in another continent.
Absolutely. And it also has a sense of community.
Mentorship. Yeah. And I think the concept of your mentorship is somehow, I don't want to say the same, but, you know, I think when two people, maybe even that don't know really each other, like, speak about a problem or speak about an idea, about a dream, they can come up with a creative way of actually moving on, or sparking like something that maybe the one wouldn't even have thought about, because they are stuck in their own little like world, you know. And I think this is where you want to like put your energy into, right?
Yes, 100%. I mean, over the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, I'm offering free masterminding classes with, or phone calls, with anybody who has an idea, but they don't know where to start, or maybe they want to talk about a fear or maybe a block that they have. And my goal is to get off the call with them within 30, 45 minutes with actionable items that they can start today. And I mentioned it on my Instagram yesterday. I think I have 4 calls back to back today still left. I have a couple of spots open tomorrow. But like you said, it's so important just to jump on the phone with somebody, and somebody who you know has been there, or has had to problem solve, or had their own challenges to overcome, and just be able to brainstorm. And that's so motivating and inspiring for people, because they feel less alone. I think the amazing thing that's coming out of this pandemic and this whole COVID-19 is a stronger sense of community, and a stronger sense of how we as individuals are part of a community, how important and integral our role is. It's no longer hiding behind screens, or hiding behind job titles, or living in a box. It's all about, like, how do we want to feel? And what do we need to do to feel lighter, to have more joy, to have more happiness? And a lot of that is human connection.
Yeah, definitely. And I also like the idea that people like rethink about their life and their work before what they have done. Was it really all that good? Was this journey so like rewarding for me as a person, as a business owner. And I remember yesterday I spoke to a florist, and she said, I have 2 little kids. I was always on the run to manage each and everything. And this time now that I have thrown back into my family, I so much enjoyed it that I will make another plan when everything starts again. You know, I think, and when all of us create a little like different environment in our own space, then we can actually make the world change.
Yeah, and we can become very successful at something that maybe we never had even considered because we were so focused on what we thought we should be doing or prove. Because we chose this particular path, we had to see it through, we had to be successful, we could not be a failure, everyone's watching us kind of mentality. And now we're like, no, actually, this is what's important to me. This is my why. And what I'm doing does not support my why. So let me figure out what does support my why, because I'll be even more successful.
Yeah, wonderful. What I wanted to ask, would you also take like phone calls from other countries, or are you only offering just to the US?
To everyone. I actually have a call today with someone from Scotland. So it's all over the world. You can go to my Instagram. It's my name, Franceska.McCaughan. And it's literally 2 clicks. The link is in my bio. I opened up spots for today and tomorrow. And like I said, it's a masterminding call. It's a Zoom call. We're face to face. I'm going to be as nervous as you are, so don't worry. And we're going to be chatting about what it is that you feel like you want to do. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to hold you to it. Just, I have this idea, but I haven't done it because of XYZ. And I want to do it because XYZ. And so it's a process that I'll go through with you to kind of clarify, make things more clear for you. And then also you'll get off the call with actionable items that you could start today to start pursuing that journey. If you decide to pursue it 100%, great. If you decide to do it 10%, great. That's on you. But I want to help get you started, because I feel like that's the biggest hurdle. And especially right now, if you've been laid off, or if you're reevaluating your career, or if you've lost your business and you're not motivated to do it again, I totally get that. And I want to help in any way that I can.
That's amazing. Can I ask you, knowing a little bit of your personal story, you had a lot of setbacks in your life. So a lot of times where you were maybe again, like really had to start at zero, like maybe like you want to share like the story with your flat, because that is maybe something that affected you most recently. But where do you draw your energy from? Like what motivates like Franceska really to go out there now, like knowing, okay, hotels will not be a thing. Maybe walking into her closet office and coming up with a new idea. So what is it that drives you, where you say, you know what, no matter how hard times like become, this is where like why I do this or how I can do this?
I think that's a very good question. So I have this saying, and it's not mine, it's very common, but it's, if you're not changing it, you're choosing it. And it's 100% true. And just to give you an example, earlier I put on my Instagram an IGTV of the CTFAR way that you can see how your thoughts control your results, which basically equal your lifestyle. So you have a circumstance, you can't change that. Let's say what you're referring to with my flat, my apartment burned down less than 2 years ago. I lost everything, felt very numb, felt very unmotivated. It was my lowest month in my entire business of sales before COVID. I didn't know how to get back on my feet, but I knew I had to do something. And so even if it's just a way to motivate myself in a little way, like making a nice coffee, or maybe spending an extra hour in bed, or giving myself some grace to get that energy back. I mean, it takes time. We've all had a tragic loss, and we all know the process of grieving and then getting our energy back. But so you have a circumstance, you can't change it, but your thoughts, you can 100% change. And so I can either sit and feel sorry for myself, or focus on what I've lost and focus on the past, or I can figure out where I want to go in the future. And I might not be there today, but I know where I want to go. And so I focus all my energy into my thoughts. And what happens is your thoughts dictate your feelings. And so if I focus on everything I've lost, I'm probably going to feel really sad and frustrated and probably depressed. And not that there's anything wrong with feelings in general. There aren't some feelings better than others. It's just, it's the state of mind that you get into from them. Or I could focus on, well, what I do have is my husband, and I do have my animals, and I do have my wedding ring, you know, things that are irreplaceable. I'm so grateful for that. And so your feelings turn into actions. So if I'm really depressed, I'm probably going to sit around, mope around a bit, probably be a bit foggy, not very clear where I want to go. Whereas I feel really grateful, I might go for a walk, I might call a friend, and that's helping support me to get that energy back. And as the result of your actions is how you're able to keep going. And so I find that this method is very tangible for people. It's CFAR, and you can just write it down. I do it every day if I come across a situation, and it helps me kind of give some sort of backbone to the whole quote of, if you're not changing it, you're choosing it.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, I think really, it's a very because I think a lot of people are emotional, and this puts a little bit a logic to your emotions, which I think a lot of people have a problem right now, because obviously everyone is extremely emotional right now, because I mean, it affects not only their private life, it affects so many things. Like, you cannot do your job, you cannot see your family, you cannot go maybe to work, you have lost your work, you cannot go out with your dog as far as you want to go, you have to stay in certain videos, you know. I mean, there are so many things that are just like put on to a person, where I truly believe it's very hard for a lot to cope with this situation, and just to make sense of it, who am I, where am I, what do I want, and just to just cope with this. So that's great.
Yeah, and it was not easy. It was not easy for me, by the way. I think I for about a week or 10 days, and I still have ups and downs. You know, I had a completely different sleeping pattern, a completely different eating pattern. I didn't leave the house for at all. I didn't answer my phone. I became very reclusive and kind of withdrawn, because of course, it's like I said, what we're going through is extremely traumatic. Our lives have basically been flipped upside down, and yes, there's the scare of the health, but there's also the scare of money and survival, and we're all in the same boat. So it's you know, I think we just have to give ourselves some time.
Yes, and we said it before, it is somehow that everybody needs to take time for a kind of a mourning process, and I think we also have to say this, nobody has to be ashamed of that, because we all have that. And you know, because we as humans, normally we try to hide things because we think it's only us, you know, if you have a problem with your husband, with your kids, or with your bank, or with your business, or whatever, you don't want to share it because you feel somehow ashamed in a way that you could not manage this, you know. But now that we are all in the same situation, where nobody is responsible for the problems that we all have, and we all have almost the same problems, I think people also open up a bit more, because they understand it's not their fault, you know.
And whether you're speaking to someone from Asia, from the Middle East, from Europe, or from the States, they can all relate to the same thing, you know. I think this is also, in a way,
a unison,
very unprecedented, because the emotions are the same, the risks are the same, the feelings are the same, it's a lot of the things are the same, whereas usually cultural differences make it very hard to come to one single emotion. But when you say pandemic, everyone has more or less the same associations, the same emotional feelings to it. So that is quite unique, right?
I just, before maybe you talk further, I just want to say there is a couple of people out there, maybe if they like to ask questions, feel just free to ask Franceska.
Sure.
Maybe I mean, I know you don't want to stress right now your Hotel Florist career, because I think it puts you a little bit also in the between the we say between the chair and the door, you know, like like really, because it's very uncertain right now. But can you tell me what is the feeling when you're working with flowers? Like what does that mean to you to have maybe also flowers in the home? Can you tell us a little bit about flowers now in the States? Are they available? Like, can you buy them? Do you get flowers from abroad? Like, what is the state of flowers in the US right now?
The state of flowers in the
That's
States.
a very good question. And just going back to your point, I do think that business is coming back. I'm actually starting to get inquiries now for new hotels and restaurants opening in the summer and the fall. So it's still on people's radar. Flowers, the wholesalers have started to open. Now, every state is a little different. I have a lot of friends who are flower farmers up north. And what the main shift that I've seen is so many event florists or wedding florists. Everybody now has decided to either do daily deliveries or just sit back and wait. And for me personally, here in Houston, our wholesalers have reopened. I actually did a wedding during the pandemic. That was a very interesting experience. I'll speak more on that later. But what I've seen is a lot of new florists popping up overnight. And I think it's great. I just, somebody got in touch with me. I've been supporting them, and they did 110 arrangements for Mother's Day, which is just incredible. They started their business right before Easter because they got laid off, and they just decided to start doing this on their own. But the availability of flowers now is readily available. They're beautiful. We've been very spoiled with products here. And I really felt that this year's Easter arrangements and Mother Day arrangements were a little bit extra special, just because you could just feel there was so much more care and pride that went into the sourcing and went into the buying and went into the designing. For me personally, when I design, it's such like it's almost like Christmas for me. So my process is that I order everything online, and I typically look what's in season and what fits in the budget. And I order in a lot of mass, so big quantities. We typically design with 1 to 3 different types of flowers in mass. We have a very chic, monochromatic, minimalist look. And so I might buy hundreds of stems of bird's eye, or 1,000 white hydrangea stems, or just make hydrangea balls all over the hotel. And so the product comes in, and 50% of the time I'm surprised by it. It's either longer than I expected, shorter, bigger, taller, smaller. I mean, the colors. So I never really hold tight on what I exactly ordered. Maybe it doesn't come in at all. And that happens a lot. And
really?
Oh yeah. And then once I get the product, I just make sure that the design still works that we had in mind. If not, I tweak it a bit. And then a lot of times I just start. I work pretty much with odd numbers. I have a lot of different height variations. And so it's a therapeutic time for me. And if I'm not doing the design has been written out for a team member to follow, just like a recipe with photos, descriptions, probably a drawing. And it's really interesting how they put their own creative twist on it. So I'd like to say when I design, it's like Christmas Day. You have no idea what you're going to get when you're done. You walk away and you either love it, you hate it, you won't do it again, whatever it might be.
I think this is a little bit different from event florists or from people who are working directly for weddings, because I think as a hotel florist, still you have a lot of
freedom,
very creative freedom, or it doesn't even really matter whether you are getting like a yellow color palette or an orange color palette this week, as long as you can make something beautiful for the lobby or for like wherever the reception area or something like this. So it just gives you like much more creativity, but maybe it's also a little bit more demanding because you don't know what you're going to get. And maybe for a wedding, and I would be actually interested, I saw like a little, like some few things, like now when you actually said you have done a wedding during like COVID right now. Tell us like how it felt for you to maybe just deliver, or maybe how the process was for you to do the wedding flowers.
Sure. So I think the biggest well, I say this, but I think the biggest difference with event flowers and let's just take wedding flowers and hotel flowers is that you have somebody that basically is going to go through and check off they got blush roses, check off they got big centerpieces. You know, like there's somebody that you're going to be held accountable to. Whereas with hotel flowers, I just want to make sure it looks good, you know, and you just have to figure out what good means to your client. The other thing about wedding flowers is it's so repetitive. You're making the same thing over and over, like 25, 35 times. Whereas with hotel flowers, we have elevator banks, so you'll make a few of the same arrangements, but it's typically pretty fast and furious. The main energy goes into that main lobby install. And so that's where all the creativity goes. Whereas I feel like with wedding flowers, all your creativity goes in the wedding bouquets, especially the bridal bouquet. But doing a wedding during the pandemic, well, that was tricky. All the wholesalers were closed. We literally didn't have any flowers. And I told the bride that we're closed. It's state law. We can't leave the house. There's no flowers. I don't know why you insist on doing this wedding. And long story short, she's a nurse in a COVID clinic. And she just told me it's going to get worse before it gets better. I really want to be married. I'll do whatever it is I need to do, but please try to make it happen for me. And so, I mean, that's on her, and I want to support her. So I looked around and I used a company called I Buy Flowers, and they delivered straight to my doorstep. So it made me feel good because I was able to support farms that typically would be selling through wholesalers, and they were all closed. So actually I had a lot of farms reach out and say thank you, and really kind about it. So everything got delivered downstairs in boxes from FedEx. I brought it upstairs. I sanitized everything. I made everything in my house. Wasn't really, you know, how I'd usually do it, but it works. It almost brought me back to the very early days when I started in my little townhouse in Ras Al Khaimah. And my husband and I worked on this wedding for like 2.5 days and put it all together with notes. And I told her, come with a fleet of cars. You're going to need a lot of space. And she came with multiple cars, and we left everything downstairs. We boxed it up. She picked everything up, and she had her wedding. And her wedding was originally for 120 people. I think she had 10. Wow. It was their closest family. It was in a tent in their backyard. It was completely reconfigured how it was supposed to be originally done. They repurposed all the flowers as much as they could, but two things came out of that. There were a lot of people that came out of the woodworks to, they gave me a lot of grief for doing this, for encouraging this, for putting people's lives at risk. And I appreciate where they're coming from. However, we did all of this very cautiously. And again, she's a nurse in a COVID clinic. She's not being irresponsible. She lives with these people anyway. And the other thing is that she decided to go ahead and still support a small business. She didn't ask for any money back. She didn't tell me, oh, I only have 10 people now. Can you just make one centerpiece? She kept to her original order. And she didn't need 120 chargers that she bought from me, but she took everything. And it was just I'm really happy I did it. It was obviously it was her wedding day. I would like to see it done under different circumstances. But she said that it was like one of the best days of her life. So that's all that matters.
Wow, what a story. I maybe have a final question, like just out of my interest, because like when you are a hotel florist, how do you actually prepare the flowers? And do you bring them, like, do you work on site in the hotel at night, or do you prepare them in your studio and you bring them there? Or how does that actually work?
So that is a very good question because everybody does it completely different. For example, when I first started, I would pre-make everything in the studio and put everything in the van and then drive the van and then take everything out. And then it was a lot of work, and a lot of things got broken, and it was hot, and it was just not ideal. When we first started, we go in the mornings and then we go in the evenings. And actually, I worked with a team at the Corinthia London a few times, and they do their installs at 2 a.m. The team shows up 2 a.m. The flowers show up at 2 a.m. on the doorstep in the loading dock. They bring everything up, and by 6, we're out of there. And so we're like little flower elves in the middle of the night, sprinkling flower dust everywhere. You could never pay anyone in the States to show up at 2 a.m. to do an install. So no. So I decided we've got to make this easier. And so last year I approached the JW and asked if we could make some arrangements to be able to have our studio inside the hotel, just because it makes so much more sense. And so now our flowers are either picked up or they're delivered. Like I said, we have a space downstairs in the hotel. Sometimes the boxes are just dropped in that room, and then we come in, we open the boxes. We don't even condition anymore. That's too much. That's extra work. We literally just take the stuff out of the boxes. We clean it, wrap it, bunch it, however we plan to do for that day. We prepare our vases, we drop them in, we swap out, and then we clean all the vases and we put them back. So I no longer condition. I no longer prep. It's straight. I mean, if I'm doing the front, I just bring the boxes of flowers with me on a cart. I keep things neat and tidy. But people love that story. They love seeing it just come together. And I think sometimes we get so, I know I did in the beginning, so like fixated on it being perfect and all the flowers being like perfectly hydrated. But you have to think like these flowers have been in these boxes for days. Like they're gonna be fine, especially if you're getting them shipped in from farms or whatnot. So for me, it's very simple. The product gets delivered. I work directly just with the product. I don't prep or anything like that. And then I just install them.
Okay. Maybe it works for you because you are choosing also specific flowers that maybe are not so much delicate. I think we have to maybe clarify that, because not every florist I would agree to say they should not hydrate, because when it in particular in my garden roses or like other delicate flowers, but which you are most probably not using because your flowers must be long lasting for the hotels. So that's why also maybe the hydration process can be skipped in a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if I do weddings or event work, it's a completely different approach. But that is another reason why I love hotel flowers, is because you have to pick hardy flowers that are going to last for at least 7 days, and you would never put you wouldn't even put a regular rose in an install. I mean, we put roses in in-room dining, but they're kept in a special fridge. So
what are the most long-lasting flowers that you can just say like what you are using, like maybe 2, 3
from your experience where you said, you know what, these are really like good for you?
I'm trying to think of the name of it. They almost look like heather, lemonium.
Lemonium, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love that stuff. I discovered it, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago. And I love the fact that it just lasts forever and it just slowly dries. You have to be careful.
You can't even dry it.
Yeah, so you have to be careful it doesn't grow mold. But other than that, like we have boxes of lemonium. And actually, when we went down for COVID and the hotel said, starting in, I think it was April, we're going to have to go ahead and put the contract on hold. We went in and we fully installed a dry floral arrangement for them in the lobby, so it wouldn't be bare. And like most of it's just, dried lemonium from Valentine's Day or from Christmas last year. We save everything. We put them back in boxes, and a lot of times you can mix them with fresh, and you can't even tell the difference. So I love this flower just because it's so delicate, it's so beautiful and masked, and then it just dries beautifully.
Yeah, I think the dried flowers is a big a trend also. Maybe your next installation can be a lot of artichokes.
Yes. Yes, the beautiful one you gave me.
Yeah, exactly. That is very special and also very long lasting. I mean, and you can take it maybe from one hotel to the other one. It doesn't even need water.
It wouldn't be the first time.
I have one thing, because at this stage, maybe when we are now at long lasting, one might think, okay, she's delivering now the flowers to the hotel. Maybe after 1 week, she obviously has to replenish the install, because like every week, maybe like or every, I don't know, 10 days, or like how long usually like hotels keep the installation? 7 days?
1 week.
1 week. Okay. So what I've seen, what you're doing, what I really like, and I want to also like let people know that you are doing this. What are you doing with the flowers that you take back?
Oh, so I started a nonprofit called Franzie's Flower Friends. As soon as Franzie's Flower Design became profitable enough to out of the startup phase, I decided, okay, it's time to give back. And we were getting so many flowers back from our hotels and from our retail brands, and they all still looked amazing at day 7 because they had to. And I can't throw anything away, and I also can't take all of this home. And so I decided that I would start a nonprofit, and we picked a charity every month to work with. They're the friend of the month, and they're nominated by the community. And so every Monday we do a full entire swap of our flowers, and then we organize with the charity to come and collect them, and they use them for their own events, or maybe, for example, we worked with one company that specialized in the women's shelter, so they would put little arrangements in the women's bedrooms, for morale and motivation. And so that was really incredible. And it also gave our clients a tax write-off because they were donating a portion of their flowers. And so it was a win-win for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's just that was the last positive message that I just wanted to share also, because that makes your whole story, I think, very round, So the way how you also approach your business, so it's not just like, getting the flowers there, but also in a way giving back to community. And this is maybe also like the way how you now, as your own like brand, like being you, want to give back to people with your mentorship. So just tell people again, like who maybe are interested, like how can they find you? Like where can they find like more information about you and the Hotel Florist? Because I know that there are 2 accounts that you have. So just share that, please.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram. It's my first name, Franceska, my last name, McCaughan. And there you're going to find everything business mentorship related. You'll learn more about the mentorship membership that's launched later this month. You'll learn more about the Business Minded podcast that's coming out next month. We're actually starting to do lives on Friday with other entrepreneurs around the number 1 way to get started piece of advice from all walks of life. And if you're really interested in hotel floral designs or how to be a hotel florist, then that's at the Hotel Florist on Instagram. That's where I talk all about when we're going to be up and running again. I share all my education materials there. I have a lot of freebies as well as some paid resources that I really wish I would have had when I started. And so all things flowers is on the Hotel Florist, and all things business is on Franceska.McCaughan.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Franceska, for...
Can you imagine we already talked 53 minutes? Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Thank you for your time, for sharing your story. I think I personally love like seeing you now and speaking to you directly, because I know I have followed you also. We have somehow always like crossed paths in a way, but like not met really through our time, like in Dubai, and you in Ras Al Khaimah and me also in Dubai. So it's really nice seeing that. I really love following your story. I hope that a lot of good things will come out of this pandemic as well for you and for your own business.
Thank you.
That things somehow get back to a normality, whichever, like, however this may look like, and that people like start trying to contact you maybe for some advice. I think that would be great for you also to just like exchange and see how far you can come with your mentorship.
Exactly.
So all the very best.
And whenever you come back and maybe travel again and come to South Africa, you're most welcome.
Well,
and
thank you.
I always remember our parking scenario.
Oh yeah,
you have to share this.
I have to share, because when we met, we met in a hotel, and there was no parking area or no space available, and they gave me a space far in the back, and there was, when I came, there was actually, the whole space was empty, but when we left, the whole space was actually packed with cars, and the distance was so close that we didn't actually know how to get out. 20 minutes, right? I think it took about it. I thought I actually just passed the driving school, so.
Amazing. But
You
this is also
overcame it.
that what it shows, that the world is very small. And in one way or the other, you always meet twice. This is what we used to say. And I think like that's an amazing thing of this global world, that we can make those connections, that no matter where you are in the world right now, you can reach out, you can like make contact to people, and
we can sit in your living room.
There you go.
Here we go.
Thank you so much. Keep well, stay safe, and all the very best for you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.